Welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we take your dense, fascinating source material and, well, we extract the essential architecture, those nuggets of knowledge that give you the shortcut to being instantly well-informed. Today, we are immersing ourselves in. It's one of the most comprehensive and radical philosophical frameworks of personal morality we have ever encountered. Our source material is from a very specific address. It was given by Reverend Sun Myung Moon on June 1st, 1979, at Belvedere, New York. The title is Reflection Upon Life, the Heart of Gratitude, and Home Church. So our mission today is to really get into a system of morality that demands a fundamental turning around of how you evaluate your entire existence. We're not here to talk about, good manners or casual appreciation. The source frames this as nothing less than the structural law of life itself. It demands unconditional gratitude.
It's a fascinating and an intense worldview. What's crucial for you to grasp right from the start is how this system completely flips the script on conventional definitions of human value. We live in a society that champions self-reliance, right? Independence, the self-made individual. This philosophy asserts the total opposite. Your true spiritual and historical value is determined not by how independent you are, but by the depth of your recognized indebtedness.
Indebtedness.
Exactly. To the universe, to history, to others, and ultimately to God. And if you fail to recognize that crushing existential debt, the source argues you're operating outside the universal way. And that leads to some surprisingly intense analogies about what it means to be human.
Okay, let's unpack this immediately because that tension is right there.
Yeah.
The source starts not with humanity, but with nature as the first teacher of this required gratitude. The speaker uses this analogy of a magnificent oak tree.
The great oak tree analogy, yeah. It establishes the baseline condition for any form of greatness or success. The idea is the tree can only command respect if it first realizes the many sacrifices and contributions made by time and the elements. It's absorbing the sun, the water, air, decades of circumstance.
Right.
That's what made its growth possible. It is great because it took so much.
And the source introduces a phrase I really want us to linger on here. It says there's a heartistic necessity for that great tree to bow down in gratitude. What does that phrase, heartistic necessity, really synthesize for us?
Well, it means it's not enough to just perform an action, like, watering the roots. The necessity is internal. It's rooted in the disposition of the heart. If the oak tree is humble and genuinely grateful, the source promises the elements will gladly give more, and even the little blades of grass in its shade won't complain that the tree is getting all the resources.
So gratitude is a kind of spiritual feedback loop.
It is. It's a feedback loop that sustains existence.
And the immediate application to you, the listener, is so direct and challenging. The source asks, can you exist independently? Can you walk around pridefully, thinking you owe nothing to anyone?
It challenges our physical self-ownership. Think about your senses. Without the sun and light, your eyes are useless. Without air and sound waves, the ears are useless. You might think you're tasting food with your own mouth, but the sun is at the same time nourishing your skin. The very act of perceiving the world is an act of receiving and therefore an act of incurring debt.
And the ultimate punchline of this section just drives the point home about physical ownership. The speaker asks what a person can truly be proud of when their arms and legs ultimately came from their parents. They don't belong to you. They belong to the ones who gave them life.
And that moves us seamlessly into the most provocative claim of the entire address, familial debt.
Right.
Yes, and this is where the terminology becomes startling. The core argument is highly specific. Humans are fundamentally indebted to their mothers because the individual stole energy while growing in the womb.
Stole energy. This is where that intensity comes in. The source literally categorizes the child as a thief.
A thief. And that metaphor is absolutely essential for understanding this entire framework. The source argues that when you buy goods at a store, you count money, you get change, you get a receipt. But for the immense sustenance, the energy, the life force taken from the mother, the child never issued one small receipt.
Wow.
The core insight here is that debt isn't just moral or financial, it's existential. It asserts that dependency and deficit are the universal structural laws of human initiation, not independence.
It paints a very stark picture of unrepayable service. The debt, if you convert it into dollars, would be so immense it could never be repaid. Considering parents care for children for over 20 years, nursing, feeding, comforting, educating.
And this unrepayable debt, it immediately translates into a universal law of repayment and action. The source claims that the debt incurred while growing up must be repaid by taking care of parents when you're grown and responsible. And this is where the source offers a pointed cultural critique. It contrasts this law sharply with the perceived attitude of young Americans who, as the speaker notes, put them away in senior citizens' homes.
With the attitude that no one needs them.
Exactly. The source insists the universe does not allow this severance. It demands harmonization and repayment.
But if a debt is infinite, how does a person ever actually repay it, even by caring for their parents?
That's the brilliant, agonizing tension at the heart of this. You can't repay it, but you must constantly act as if you are striving to. The action of care, of service, of gratitude is the only valid form of spiritual receipt. And this law of debt extends beyond just our immediate family. The speaker encourages us to extend this gratitude even to the animal kingdom. When you look at a cow in a pasture, what do you think of? The source challenges you. Is it just that it's fat and ready for a steak? Or do you stop and thank it for its existence?
That's a surprisingly empathetic idea, linking gratitude to the entire created order. The source suggests that even a cow would prefer to be eaten by a person who shows gratitude instead of simple greed.
Exactly. If a person truly knows their position of profound indebtedness, the thief who is trying to make amends, the entire world, the source claims, gladly harmonizes with him. God, the speaker notes, did not create the world just to serve man's consumption.
So if the original debt is to our parents, the second massive sphere of debt is institutional. Let's move to the teachers, who in Oriental philosophy are referred to as second parents.
Yes, and the analogy for the student is that they start as a blank piece of paper. Instructor after instructor implants skills, writing, perception, judgment. We can't claim pride in our achievements unless we are equally grateful for the inheritance of those skills. It's impossible to separate the product of your success from the process, from the education.
And the address presents a really specific, powerful American example to illustrate the gravity of failing in this specific gratitude. The speaker cites the alarming reality of American teachers being physically assaulted, and even, he says, beaten to death by their pupils. And this is used not just as a sociological observation, but as a moral warning. It states that the universe will bring such people to ruin and never allow them to prosper.
This is exactly how the source uses cultural feelings to enforce its universal law. It argues that if God were observing a nation where the student attacks the second parent, could he possibly bless that nation or those individuals? The system of heaven demands order and respect based on this indebtedness.
And to make restitution for this moral failure, the specific action suggested isn't generic. It's a concrete effort. The listener should sit down and write a letter to a former teacher and thank them not just for the skills, but for the strictness and discipline that led to better skills and clearer judgment.
And moving outward again, the debt expands to society and the nation. A person is deeply indebted to social systems. The alternative is, anarchy. And regarding political leadership, the office of the presidency is described as bearing ultimate responsibility for protection and policy.
The source is quite clear on the political application of this gratitude. It says people should be grateful to the president, and if they criticize, the society suffers. It's not about policy, but about respect for the position of ultimate sacrificial love. The most important quality for a president, the source insists, is sacrificial love for the country.
And this leads us to the ultimate dichotomy the source presents, gratitude versus complaint, and how that relates to a universal vibration. This is where the philosophy veers into what feels like spiritual physics.
I have to stop you there. The visual the speaker uses for the complainer is incredibly striking. It's almost cinematic.
It absolutely is. The complainer is described as someone who deserves a sign saying, "I'm a complainer." Complaint, according to this framework, actively repels everything in the universe. It makes the person substandard at the animal level. The speaker even uses the visual of women with long red fingernails, suggesting they grow them to bite or scratch the universe because of their internal dissatisfaction.
Wow. That analogy of the red fingernails as a symbolic weapon against the universe, what does that tell us about the perceived malignancy of complaint in this worldview?
It tells us that complaint isn't just a personal mood, it is an active spiritual force. It's a vibration that clashes with universal harmony. The person is literally fighting the structure of existence. Conversely, the mind of infinite gratitude is described as larger than any ocean. It sends out waves that harmonize with the universe. And the highest value determination God makes of an individual is based entirely on the amount of unconditional gratitude they can impart, especially under adverse conditions.
Here's where it gets really interesting as we explore the ultimate goal of life within this ideology. If life is an education, the source states clearly that the subject is love, and the only acceptable attitude is gratitude.
It outlines a very clear sequential hierarchy for learning love, mapped onto specific ages. It's the path to becoming a true saint. First, parental love. That predominates until age 18. Then, the love of teachers and education takes over until age 36, aiming for that PhD level of knowledge. After that, the love of nation and society becomes paramount until age 54. And finally, the love of saints and the world is the stage until age 72, which the source dramatically states is when true life actually starts.
So all the time before that is just education.
It's all just an intensive education.
And to reach God, who is the ultimate teacher of love, an individual has to carry a symbolic certificate, signed by 4 different entities confirming specific qualities and loyalty milestones.
Precisely. First, your parents must sign, confirming you're a child of filial piety. You passed the lowest loyalty test. Second, your teachers must sign, affirming you are a devoted and grateful student. Third, the head of state must confirm you're a patriotic person. And fourth, a saint must affirm you are trustworthy and dependable for humanity. These are the spiritual requirements for entrance.
Wait a second. We established earlier that the debt to parents is infinite and unrepayable. Yet at the highest stage, the source explicitly states that you have to transcend lower loyalties, like parents and teachers, and even be able to govern them because you're taking up the baton for a higher mission. How does this philosophy reconcile the infinite debt with the ability to transcend and potentially supersede the authority of the original creditors?
That is the essential structural paradox. It's not advocating disrespect, it's demanding a structural hierarchy of loyalty. You only earn the right to transcend when you have fully established the love standard, that unconditional gratitude required at the lower levels. The act of transcending means proving your loyalty to the universal mission is now paramount, even over the personal mission to your parents or teachers. By taking up the higher mission, you aren't erasing the debt. You're honoring it in the most universal way possible by becoming the ultimate teacher of love for others.
That makes the structure clear. The home church is the final exam for establishing that perfected love. This philosophical structure then leads directly into the practical application, the mission of the home church, which the source presents as the destiny for its members. And for context for our listener, home church isn't a building. It's a specific local territory or community where members must live and practice this philosophy.
Exactly. The Unification Church itself is presented as the microcosm, the best school in the universe, where love and gratitude are correctly taught. And the mission is to indemnify historical failures, to collect the past spiritual mistakes of humanity. The members, the source states, are being taught to be the best father, the best teacher, and best leader, even as the best saint.
And the education requires an immediate high-stakes test of loyalty. The speaker instructs members to love their parents and their nation more than they love him, which illustrates that the goal isn't personal devotion, but establishing this universal, self-sustaining love standard.
But the immediate non-negotiable destination is the home church territory. This is the territory and realm, the final settlement where the theory has to be proven in practice. And the rules are intense. Members must love their home church more than their husband or wife. The stakes are existential failure, and home church means being kicked out of the path to heaven.
So home church becomes the ultimate proof ground. It's the place where you must prove you can love the chaotic, difficult reality of your neighborhood, more than the pristine ideal of your marriage or your family unit.
And the vision of life within this home church culture requires extreme commitment. The source puts a heavy emphasis on family life with the injunction to have many children, stating clearly, "I do not support birth control."
And the blessing offered for this commitment is a massive safety net. The children born into this community will have 360 homes right away, as the home church community will compete to take care of them and honor them as the offspring of true saints. It transforms child rearing from a private debt to a collective enterprise of gratitude.
It's all designed to dismantle lower loyalties in favor of the higher loyalty to the collective destiny. The source even presents this powerful and perhaps provocative vision of racial harmony within this context. The vision of a black mother nursing her white child at her breast is described as the most beautiful sight for God, claiming that no one in that situation could harbor racial discrimination.
So the physical act of shared familial love, extended past biological lines, is the goal.
It's the goal of this settlement, yes.
And finally, the ultimate personal pledge required to succeed and earn those spiritual certificates. The source demands the commitment to serve one's own elderly, incapacitated, and perhaps very difficult parents as much as one would serve the speaker in that condition.
That final pledge is the true, gritty test of this philosophy. It's not about serving a pristine leader. It's about finding that highest, unconditional form of love and gratitude in the most difficult, physically taxing, and often unrecognized domestic duty. And this love must be practiced and established in the home church territory within 7 years, a finite deadline for infinite transformation.
Okay.
So what does this all mean for you? The central lesson presented in this 1979 address is that the individual life is an urgent, simple, and profound choice. You must choose between being dominated by gratitude, which creates a clear sky, or complaint, which creates a cloudy sky.
And the speaker emphasizes the relentless nature of time. Light is like a spark of light. It passes quickly. And time is not merciful. It will never relax its pace. There's no time for complaint because the clock is always running on your existential debt.
Therefore, the urgency of action is absolute. If you wait until next month or next year to begin practicing this unconditional gratitude, the source warns that tomorrow will never come. The commitment to this radical level of service and acknowledgement of indebtedness must start today, June 1st, the very day the address was given.
The source leaves us with a truly provocative thought that just summarizes the framework's historical weight. It promises that those who suffer in the lowest possible position with the heart of gratitude will win the highest position in the love of God. And we are left to consider whether that unconditional thankfulness, even when being treated like human trash, is a sustainable path and the necessary prerequisite to the kingship and queenship that the source promises for you and your future.